I've been really blown away by the quality of the comments I've had over the last few months, so I'm doing a bumper and standalone feedback edition covering some new stuff from the whole first Ferrix arc. There's cool stuff to come today: Thunderbirds, Karl Marx, trams, and more. The Ukester says Brasso had the best mom joke in all of Star Wars when he hollers to Cassian in front of a couple of dozen men, "Tell your mom she can afford to leave the heat on, it was freezing there last night." Yes, that's perfect. That is exactly the kind of thing a man like Brasso would do in front of his workmates, is disguise his concern for Maarva underneath lad banter. Perfect. The Beef says, I'm a bit surprised that you skipped the second line of the series, which has always struck with me. When Cassian gets his drink at the bar, he's told you pay at the end. Given that at this point all we really know about Andor is his ending, this foreshadows that he'll pay the cost for his decisions from this point on. Yep, good stuff, should have spotted that. I mentioned that Syril and Cassian are like mirrors in their journeys, one into fascism, one into rebellion, but Zank Frapper points out that I didn't notice the strong visual evidence for this when Syril is looking at the hollow of Cassian. Good shout, but I think this is a bit more than a mirror. It looks like Syril is looking at a negative of himself here, one that's ghostly, unstable and corrupted, with Cassian representing the chaos that keeps him up at night. Collie Bry with a good one. When Bix turns up at Timm's, her first words are, "Is it too late?" which is just after he's called Pre-Mor and undoubtedly adds to his discomfort during the scene, which the commenter describes as the least sexy sex scene on recent TV. NNJZ points out that something Mosk says is unbelievably dumb. I'd like to draw attention, if I may, to the phrase, "the best way to keep the blade sharp is to use it." When I first heard it, I was flabbergasted. No sane human would think that a blade stays sharp with use when it in fact dulls quickly the more often you use it. Yep, great. Timothy, the shuttle interior and uniform design all looks like Jerry Anderson and Thunderbirds. Yes, this is a great one once you see it, spot on. The boots feel especially Thunderbird-ish. Syril in particular has the exact build of a Thunderbird puppet and even kind of moves like one. He's wooden, he's charismaless, he has kind of a doll-like face. In fact, those puppets have more charisma than him when they're being operated. So yeah, love it, thank you. Fun fact, I interviewed Jerry Anderson about the Thunderbirds video game back in the day, and he was a grumpy old sod who clearly wasn't interested in games, even those carrying his name. Sheepyu, in response to me calling Mosk a gammon, it's actually amazing how the actors playing the Imperials in this show perfectly nail the vibes of the British right. From the Tories, Krennic and the ISB, to Reform, Mosk and the Narkina prison guards, to creepy 4chan incels, Dr. Gorst and the Lieutenant on Mina Rao, with Ferrix basically being Space Belfast with a heavy dash of the colliery towns of Wales and Northern England. A Clockwork Wizard, this is really great stuff. They point out that the shuttle on Ferrix looks like the Czech trams from the 50s and 60s that still circle my city and others, especially in the post-Soviet space. It's especially the colour scheme, red body with yellow highlights, orange plastic seats, the way you have to climb several steps when you enter or exit. Yeah, this is undoubtedly the inspiration here, and it works thematically. I did a little research, and the Tatra T3 was the most common tram of the Cold War, rolling through Prague, Kiev and East Berlin. These were the machines of ordinary life under authoritarianism, battered, patched and kept alive by the people who needed them. By echoing that shape, Andor makes a quiet point. Ferrix isn't a world of glittering sky lanes or Plaisir 15-star monorails, it's a world of working hands and salvaged metal. The shuttle looks like it belongs to the people, or at least it once did, a people's machine that now finds itself pressed into the service of a corporation. It carries the weight of occupation in its silhouette, and in doing so it ties Ferrix's struggle to a longer history of resilience. And just as those old trams outlasted empire after empire, the people of Ferrix will endure, salvaging and resisting with whatever's at hand. Alan Inler points out that Luthen seems to have built his exit on the way in specifically based on Willie's conversation, as that's the route Luthen later suggested him and Cassian use. One major moment I forgot to mention was pointed out by both of my most regular commenters, Collie Bryan, no thank you. Syril shooting at the little aliens in the place he hides out in. That's quite a big moment to miss, which communicates so much. If it's a warning shot, it's a bad one, because it looks very close. I don't think it's malice, I don't think he wants to kill them. This is fear. This is a panicky little boy getting his first taste in the field. He sees 2 terrified residents in there, who I think were designated as little aliens to make Syril look more pathetic, and Cyril's mind basically went, "Oh my god, I'm gonna die," and reacted in a way that has led to the deaths of many innocent civilians in the real world because of twitchy police who are given powerful weapons and not trained how to use them in high-stress situations like a soldier is. Also, the aliens running down the street a moment later are clearly recognised by Cassian, which is how he ends up behind Syril in the first place, because he knows where they work. NMJZ and John Tate talked about the familiarities of subordinates being hung out to dry or scapegoated, both through the lens of serving in the military and working for a corporation, with John Tate pointing out that Marx talked about how the military always echoes the societal structure it comes from, which is why even those of us who haven't done any service recognise these behaviours, such as immediately throwing colleagues under the bus, because in our world, just as in Star Wars, the military has come to reflect business and corporate culture. CatDRL2 points out that the alarm pattern in Ferrix, 4 beats then a pause, different to the bell tower heartbeat, comes up in the future, both when he and Melchi come to rescue Clea and when Cassian takes Mon Mothma to the safe house. So yes, it's important to me that I correct the record when I no longer agree with something I've said. Maybe one of you has pointed out contradictory evidence, or maybe I've realised something myself, but I need to put it right, if nothing else, to carry a consistent viewpoint forward into future episodes. On that note, when I justified I would also have phoned Pre-Mor, I said part of my mental equation was Timm finding out Cassian had murdered 2 cops. No Thank You points out that of course he didn't know. The warrant did not contain those details. However, this doesn't change my point because I still would have phoned them. It's pretty obvious that the crime must be something major, so my imagination would have been thinking along those lines anyway. This is the real genius of Timm's writing, because he does all these terrible things, but most of us would have in his shoes, with his information, right up until his final moment. I hope you don't take offence, fellow men, but admit it. We want to be as cool as Cassian, as powerful as Luthen, or as resolutely honourable as Brasso, but chances are most of us are Timm. Timm's death being a choice he made. People have suggested he made this choice in a fury or a panic. Yeah, he did it in both of those things, but that doesn't invalidate the choice. The human brain is amazing at picking up threats. Even in a microsecond, it can slow everything down, and it would have known, I've got these guns pointing at me, and this is what's going to happen if I keep running. There's no way Timm didn't know they were going to shoot. The people of Ferrix are scared of corpos just like they are everywhere, because they're dangerous. You usually have to give police far less incentive to shoot you than running at them screaming, and lots of people have found that out the hard way. At the very least, his decision was fuck it, whatever happens happens, just run. Which is basically the same as making that decision. Bix not trusting Cassian, a couple of comments about that. This one's pretty clear, I think. She'd still be with Cassian if she could fully trust him, and Timm's boring reliability is a big part of his appeal to her. Her answer to that question when Luthen asks it is purposefully written in screenwriting terms as evasive. Her trust for Cassian is complex and contextual. In some circumstances she trusts him completely, in others not so much. It's why she keeps him at arm's length. Bix being a rebel and helping recruit Cassian. I've softened on this, but I still believe it. What exactly do I mean by rebel? Well, she doesn't know much about Luthen, doesn't know his alter ego for instance. He's going to have compartmentalized who needs to know what. She's not like some of his other agents where he could send her somewhere. She's not an operative yet. But I think she knows what he is, a powerful figure who's ideologically driven by bringing down the Empire. Bix will have a range of products and plenty of buyers, all who employ various levels of security when dealing with her, but this guy specifically, who Cassian refers to as her secret friend, is the one who wants the Empire's military tech specifically, and he has his own setup. That radio isn't for anyone else, that's been installed for him. Then her deference to him in person. She's nervous around him, keen to please, and they have rapport. It feels closer than buyer and trader. It's hard to be sure on this, but I do think his record says he's from Fest comment has a silent but at the start. He's dismissing her concerns. She's relaying the risk of meeting Cassian to him at the time, and he's kind of going, so? This bulletin doesn't link to Cassian, why do I care about this? When I said I thought they'd been discussing Cassian for a while, I believed it was unevidenced, but I'd actually forgotten that Cassian literally says, "You said he wanted to meet me," when he first goes to see Bix. This pretty much seals it. Why else would Bix and Luthen be discussing him? It can't just be, "I know a good pilot." Luthen can find one of those anywhere. What he wants to know is ideological alignment, and that requires personal history being shared by Bix to explain why Cassian hates the Empire and what went before that resembles it so much that it might as well be the same. So yes, I think she's in the know and technically in the rebellion. She probably thinks Luthen extracting Cassian and giving him a purpose would be good for him, and if nothing else he'd be extracted and hidden more successfully in the short term by Luthen than by whatever Cassian was getting Zan to arrange for him on the old vacuum cleaner repair hotline. What she doesn't know is Luthen's propensity for tying up loose ends. And finally, Luthen killing Syril. Would he? In a heartbeat if it were necessary, but executing an officer would bring even more heat on Ferrix and Luthen than they already get. If you watch Cassian smiling subtly in this scene, I think these two are bonding here. Luthen telling Cassian to kill Syril may well be a test, but it's not meant as a serious execution order. Luthen's "I'll kill him" seems vaguely mirthful to me, as well as a very effective way to get Syril to blurt out the info they want. I think they've come in behind Syril, immediately pegged him as the inexperienced and twatty little head prefect that he is. They don't know that he's a threat, and the two of them are just bullying him for amusement. Syril already knows who Cassian is, and how's he meant to identify Luthen? The man is impossible to describe. Old, human, male, and unremarkable in every way. Good luck finding that guy, not just on Ferrix, but in the galaxy. I've not done a feedback standalone before. Let me know if you think this is a good way to approach it in future, and I'll be back soon with a wider variety of content and some channel announcements before I branch out from Ferrix, Kenari and Morlana 1 with episode 4 of Andor.